Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of Runnin on Scuffs. I am your host, Justin Seeger, coming at you from the Scuffs studio, and we are back. I am back for the first time in a couple weeks. Last week I had some work to attend to, but I am here because I heard there were some comments made about my absence last week, and I just want to point out that Tom's not here tonight. So I respect Dan because at least you're here with me. So nonetheless, we're glad to be here, ready to talk NASCAR. Talk about some Cup Series action at Kansas. We've got a big race to preview this weekend at Talladega, and So without further ado, let's hop over to my co-host, Mr. Dan Foster, our resident Florida man. Dan, how are you this evening?
I'm good, bud. Had a good day at work today. It was pretty quiet and, nothing crazy or too chaotic. And came home, and even though I watched the race this weekend, I watched a little bit of a recap, just keep it fresh in my mind. But other than that, doing good. Ready for some Talladega racing this weekend. I'm excited. I always love the super speedways, even if it is a gas mileage race. A lot of times I still enjoy it. So I think it's going to be a fun, exciting weekend.
Yeah, I think so too. It's a great way to kind of wrap up the month of April. We get ready for the month of May. NASCAR doesn't treat the month of May quite like IndyCar does, but you know what? It's still a special month because we've got the Coke 600 looming, and we've got some big races coming up. Also, back with us, running the show behind the scenes is our lovely producer, Peyton Moore. So we're glad to have her. She's waving to the crowd from behind the scenes. So show Peyton some love. She's the one pulling up your comments, so we appreciate her being behind the scenes for us. But we've got a great show tonight. We've got, as I kind of alluded to, we've got Kansas to talk about. We have some racing action from the Heartland to talk about. On a mile and a half, and then we have one Scuff story to talk about this weekend. I guess we could throw in another one potentially, but we'll save that for next week. And then we've got a preview Talladega, so that'll be a fun show. Be sure if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the follow button, subscribe, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook. Mike Cora, I really hope that the incoming storm does not affect you too much. A 13-degree temperature drop in 10 minutes is definitely not a good thing. And I know if our good buddy Mike Daffner were here, he would say the same thing, and he might actually be hopping on the radar to look at it for you. But yeah, if you're not already, be sure to like this video, share it on your social pages, and then follow us on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Well, without further ado, Dan, let's hop right into it. Let's get into our race review segment. All right. Well, it was a great weekend of racing, I thought, anyway. From Kansas, but the winner is kind of a same song, different verse. If you're watching NASCAR in 2026, we did not. I promise, Dan, I did not copy and paste this script. This is a brand new script. But you might be confused because Tyler Reddick has won once again. In 2026, and kind of in an overtime thriller at Kansas. Dan, what were your thoughts on let's talk about Tyler Reddick at first. Let's start off with the winner, because there's a lot to unfold from really the last 5 laps of that race. But let's talk about Tyler Reddick. Reddick, he qualified on the pole. He got he ran kind of top three, top five all day, kind of slipped back a little bit, and then just stayed close enough. Had a pit strategy on the last green flag pit stop of the race, which allowed him to jump Denny Hamlin. Ran out of fuel on the second to last lap, got it refired, but fell back to second. And then and then the caution comes out and he pits, and he was able to get through and get the win. So what an eventful race for Tyler Reddick.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I know Denny Hamlin kind of like dominated the race for the most part. Like if you go and look at it statistically, he pretty much dominated the race. But Reddick was there from start to finish. Like it's not like he really faded off or got hot there at the end. He was, like you said, top five pretty much most of the day. I feel like it was pretty much between Hamlin, Larson, and Reddick. If you would have asked me halfway through the race, it would have been one of those three to win, and that's pretty much what it came down to. So, but I mean, at this point, can we just call him Red Hot Reddick? Because I mean, this kid, and I say kid because he's younger than me, but I mean, he is on fire. And I don't know if it's the team. I don't know if it's the driver. I don't know if it's just, the fact that MJ showing up to more races or what. I don't know. But I am here. I'm excited for it. And I'm very excited to see, just how far they take this, whether it's, makes it to the chase and everything else or not. I don't know. But I think going in basically through the regular season, I think he's going to be the leader going into the chase by quite a bit at this point.
So I'm kind of glad that you touched on this, because you said that you were kind of excited to see where Reddick's at. This is the first weekend where I feel like the fans are maybe not on Reddick's side here, or at least the fan base as a whole. And I wanted your opinion on that, because I feel like I'm with you. I mean, I'm obviously I'm not a Reddick fan, but it has been incredible to start this season and just see the dominance that he's had so far. But I'm starting to see the fan base start to turn against him in such a way. We saw it a little bit after his Darlington win, but even more so after Kansas. It's like, all right, we're tired of seeing Reddick win.
Well, I think it's like with any other, repeat winner, especially someone who wins so much. I mean, Tom Brady and the Patriots, 90% of the NFL hated them back in the heyday when the dynasty started. I mean, besides Michael Jordan during his NBA run, I really don't think there's a champion of the sport, or even winners of a sport, that have gone out and won and been the most popular team, the most popular player, most popular driver, whatever it may be, except for Michael Jordan back in the day, because everyone fell in love with Michael Jordan. But I think it's just like, it reminds me of Jimmy Johnson back in the early 2000s when he went on his run of 6. I mean, it's crazy to think it was that long ago, but realistically, he was red hot just like this. Granted, I don't think he ever really won 5 out of 9, but I mean, when you have someone who wins that many championships in a row, obviously the other fans, other drivers, whatever, are like, all right, enough's enough, bud. Like let's move on. Let's get some fresh blood. But I think that's where we're at with the fan base right now. Like coming out of the off season with the lawsuit and everything, I think that really put a lot of fans on the side of 23XI and Denny Hamlin, Front Row Motorsports to an extent. And then they come out red hot, winning the first 3 races. Okay, we're going to win 4 out of 8, whatever, or 4 out of 7, whatever it was after Darlington. And then now he's pretty much won over 50% of the first 10 races already. And it's like, okay, well, hang on, enough's enough. Let's get someone else out there. But like I said, I'm excited. I think it's a great thing for the sport to have someone come in, and someone who's been with the series for a while. It's not like he's a rookie coming in and dominating. This is he's gone through Richard Childress Racing a couple seasons in the 8 car. Now he's over with the 45 and for 23XI, and I think that team's really kind of getting to its own groove and really showing that they're capable of winning a championship.
I will say this as things currently stand, because they put up the graphic where only three other drivers in NASCAR history have ever won 5 of the first 9 races in a season, and the other 3 went on to win the championship in that season. Um, I think if you're a fan of what Mark Martin is pushing, uh, you're praying Tyler Reddick loses this championship at this point because, and I'm just going to be honest because I've been telling people, look, people like me in the playoff camp, I'm gonna give the chase format flack if Tyler Reddick loses this title because at least with the playoff format, you knew that there was a winner take all last race that might be unfair. But this chase format has been kind of touted as a step in the driver fairness direction. And I'm looking at it right now. Of course, there's still a lot of regular season to go, but right now, Tyler Reddick, he's got a over 100-point lead in the standings. And at the very best, when we get to the chase, that's going to get cut down to 25 points. And from an entertainment standpoint, I get it, but watching this dominance of Tyler Reddick right now, it's hard to go, man, let's cut that down to 25. Like I want to see him go with it.
And yeah, I know you're a fan like I am. You know, if a guy has a dominant race car, you know, let him win and let him lead every lap. I mean, I know you were a huge fan of MTJ, you know, at the Coke 600 that year. But like when a driver and a team's this dominant, if you're sitting there saying absolutely they need to you know take points away so he's only so close going into the chase, I don't understand that thought process. I don't see how you could be a fan of the sport if you're sitting there saying, oh yeah, let's basically penalize this guy because he's too good. That's basically what you're telling me when you're like, oh, well, we're going to start him off with a 25-point lead. Like, no, they've worked 9 races into the season. They're already over 100 points ahead. Come on now. That's not fair. We all know that, NASCAR. So let's figure this out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. And that's the kind of fan that I am. I'm a fan of seeing dominance. Maybe that's the Martin Truex Jr. fan in me. But I enjoy seeing, you know, what Alex Bowman and Ryan Blaney did at Auto Club the last couple of years that they were there. I love seeing these big gap wins, you know, seeing a driver that has just waxed the field. I would have enjoyed it had Denny Hamlin won that race because Denny Hamlin was just head and shoulders, you know, above the rest of the field in that race. And what Tyler Reddick is doing on this season is nothing short of dominance. I mean, it's not, you know, it's not a particular track type. He's won at Daytona. He's won at Atlanta. He dominated COTA, a track that, like, I think a lot of people expected Reddick to be up there, but a lot of people still were looking at SVG, you know, as the road course guy. And then we get to the intermediates. Like we've seen Darlington, we've seen Kansas. Like he is up there competing. And I don't want to penalize that. If, you know, I get it. I think I find a way every episode we have to mention that I am a playoff defender. I'm a playoff guy. But if we're going to have a points-based format, don't penalize guys like Tyler Reddick for this. Like, let's, you know, if our choices are between the chase and a Winston Cup format, then I'll jump on the Mark Martin bandwagon here. Because I enjoy seeing what we're seeing right now. But let's talk about the race as a whole, particularly those last, you know, few laps. What might have been for Denny Hamlin? I don't. I think if you're a Denny Hamlin fan, it's kind of like the Phineas and Ferb meme, where it's like if I had a nickel for every time I lost a race because a caution came out with 2 to go, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. And if you're a Hamlin fan, you might be able to tell me more than two occasions where that's happened um, in his career. But man, what might have been for Hamlin, right? He thought he lost because Reddick caught him on the pit strategy, and then Reddick sputtered on the gas and fell back behind Hamlin. So we're like, okay, well Hamlin may win this after all. And then the caution comes out, and then Reddick, gets back by him, and then the restart happens. They all jump Hamlin, Larson, and we see Briscoe get up in there on the four tires, and Hamlin ends up coming home fourth because of it. So, Dan, what were your thoughts on Denny Hamlin and the what might have been?
I mean, like you said, if we had a nickel for every time, I mean, I think, last season was like the season everyone thought Denny was going to win it. But he's come out this year. I mean, he's still running up front. Like he's obviously still competitive. And I mean, when I think of Kansas, like I told Tom last week, I think of Toyota and I think of Denny specifically. So I think it's still the Denny we all expect. I hate it for him because I really, after last season and the disappointment, I feel like he might not have had the disappointment in not winning the championship, but I feel like the fan base as a whole was fairly disappointed in the fact that he did not win the championship at Phoenix. But I think after that season, last season, a lot of people expected him to either come out and he's going to be hitting homers every weekend, or he's going to struggle and, kind of run, maybe back into the chase and everything else. But I think he's still coming out. He's, like I said, he's competitive. He's not being the dominant car every week, but I mean, he's definitely been the dominant car for a few races, I feel like. And like I said, this weekend, it was his race until Cody Ware decided to do Cody Ware things. Granted, I understand he was running on like 60 lap tires. I don't know what the crew chief was thinking on the 51, but unfortunately that pretty much cost Denny the race.
Yeah. I think that's kind of where we're at with with what happened to Denny Hamlin. Still a very good run for Denny, especially in kind of this points racing format that we go into. The only driver, you kind of alluded to this, the only driver that really showed much really much ability to be able to get up there and run with Reddick or Hamlin. I know Christopher Bell, he did there kind of late before that last pit stop, and then he had some contact on that last restart that spun him out. But the only driver that was other than a Toyota that was up there was really Kyle Larson. I know Chase Elliott got up there a little bit, but he kind of faded back pretty quick. And then we saw Kyle Larson, he won stage 2. So what about it? By the way, just a public service announcement, Mike Cora, we hope that you are safe and okay during the apparent tornado warning that is there for Mike Cora. So be weather conscious. I want everybody to watch our programming whenever they can. But if it's more important for you to watch your local weather, please do so.
We will have these videos posted online. You can come back and watch them later. You don't have to watch them live.
Right, exactly. Just had to get that PSA out of the way since I was reading the comments. But yeah, Kyle Larson kind of ran up there towards the front. He ended up finishing second. I thought Kyle Larson was going to win at there for a minute, and I was like, this is literally the worst case scenario in this. Like I was like, please don't let it be Larson at this point. So let's talk about a move that has kind of caught the NASCAR sphere. At the end of stage 1, Denny Hamlin pretty well dominated stage 1. He was lapping drivers left and right. Towards the end, Denny Hamlin puts Todd Gilliland a lap down. I want to say Gilliland was running 28th or so at the time. And then for the next few laps, Denny Hamlin proceeds to put more drivers a lap down, and Todd Gilliland follows him through that, and he finds a way to for to get those spots and stay in that free pass position. Then on the last lap of the stage, Denny Hamlin actually kind of pulls over, and because he wasn't in danger of losing the stage, he let Todd Gilliland back around him in order to get his lap back. And even Clint Boyer made mention on the broadcast that was a gift, that Hamlin let Gilliland back around him. And I think some in the moment, including myself, I kind of thought maybe Hamlin was just impressed that Gilliland was able to hold on to him and be able to make those passes. Some radio communication, though, comes out to find that that's not what happened. That Denny Hamlin's team noted who was behind the 34, and it was the 47 of Ricky Stenhouse Jr., which if you are not in tune with, if you're not in tune with Hamlin and Stenhouse, they're close friends. We've seen them hang out together with, Kyle Larson. They're all kind of a close friend group there. And Denny Hamlin was allowed Gilliland back by so that Stenhouse could get the free pass. And Dan, I want your opinion on this. There's been this blow up. Stenhouse has made comments about it. Hamlin's own co-hosts of Actions Detrimental have made comments about this. Matter of fact, I think that's where the ball kind of got rolling on that. Do you think that Hamlin's move at the end of stage one, is that fair or is it foul?
I grew up watching NASCAR in the 90s, okay? Yes, we had the race back to the line, but when you had a driver who, had no one racing them for first place come into the line, they let off. If a couple cars got past them, it wasn't a major issue if, a couple cars got back on it, got a lap back or even back on the lead lap. And until NASCAR did the lucky dog, it was the expectation that you ran the leader back to the finish line to try to get that lap back. I am perfectly fine with it. Granted, it kind of does put a damper on things when it's, I'm doing it because it's a buddy of mine or whatever. But realistically, it's up to the leader to make that decision. If other drivers are upset about it, they should have been in the lead, plain and simple. I think, overall, it's fair play. And if that's, the decision that the leader wants to make, then by all means. I don't have an issue with it. Like I said, I grew up watching NASCAR in the 90s when that was the thing. You race the leader back to the start finish line. Especially if back then they raced back to the line every time. There was no wreck happen, throw a caution immediately, everybody slows down. You ran back to the start finish line every time. So I'm fine 100% with Denny making that decision, whether it was 100% intentional to get Ricky back on the lead lap with the lucky dog, or if it was a gift, as Clint Boyer said about Zane Smith, Todd Gilliland. But 100%, I have no issues with that at all whatsoever.
We used to watch NASCAR even in the early to mid 2000s, where lap down drivers would line up right next to the leaders on a restart. Yeah. You would have the front 2 or 3 lap down drivers. If there was a caution, they were going to send it and they were going to go for it to try to get that lap back. So
it was the expectation.
Yeah. If you're, matter of fact, they even put them on the inside.
They gave them the benefit.
Yeah. And they said, send it. We're gonna try to get this lap back. So that's just part of what it was. And one of the things that Stenhouse pointed out on Hamlin's podcast is the favor came back around later in the race, because when towards the end of the race, when Hamlin and Reddick were battling for the leads, they caught Stenhouse, and Stenhouse pulled over and just got out of the way. So the favor returned itself for Hamlin. So now maybe you pick and choose. Drivers can pick and choose who they want to give those favors to and who not.
But I think if it was Kyle Larson trying to get back on lead lap, Denny would not have given him that opportunity, because that's the one you're going to battle for the win later on down the road. Whereas Ricky Stenhouse, he's not the best equipment. He's not running top 5, top 10. So obviously he's not really going to be racing you for the win most likely later on down the road. So I don't have an issue with it, and it's up to the leader. If they don't want to do it, they don't have to do it.
Yeah. Hey, if you don't want to see drivers helping out other drivers, then don't watch this weekend.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, all of them will have been ordered to do so by their respective manufacturers. So now whether they do that or not is up to them. But believe me, they will all have team orders to help out your fellow teammate. I don't see much. I don't think it's as big of a deal. I get the NASCAR rule is, you got to drive 100% the whole time. Like, some would argue that was just as much a 100. It was a strategy call. It was a strategy call for Denny to do later because he felt like that would come back around for him. So I don't see the big deal. I'll tell you something else regarding Denny Hamlin that I don't see the big deal about, but I felt like it was warranted for us to talk about this. Let's talk about Denny Hamlin versus Kyle Busch. Former teammates at Joe Gibbs Racing. In case you don't know, Denny Hamlin has a podcast, a NASCAR podcast, just like this one, except his is far more watched. And he talks about NASCAR issues, NASCAR things, NASCAR topics that gets brought to his attention. And in such a way that it was brought up to Hamlin on his, not his most recent podcast, but the one he had last week, of Kyle Busch and the struggles that they clearly had at RCR. And I think Denny, I don't know if you've seen the clip of it, Dan, but I think Denny was pretty fair to Kyle Busch. I mean, he acknowledged that there were, clearly struggles going on. And I think, I think Denny did a fairly good service to Kyle Busch of saying, hey, I know Kyle's a driver, a champion, that he wants to win, but right now they just don't have, they don't have that. I don't know if it's Kyle Busch. I don't know if it's the car, the equipment, whatever. But something's going on there. And then Kyle Busch seemingly took offense this weekend at Kansas when he was asked about it and said, quote, I dare Denny to step into my equipment and try to run any better, and proceeded to say I can make his life hell on the racetrack. And to which Denny responded on Twitter going, I'm not sure what was so offensive there. So I don't know. Is this just Kyle Busch being Kyle Busch and just being upset about things, or what's happened here, Dan?
I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with, let's be honest and look at the real situation. Kyle Busch is not running where he wants to run, whether that's him as the driver not really, clicking with the team, whether it's the equipment in general. I mean, we don't really know exactly why he's not getting the wins that he was accustomed to getting. Well, we're accustomed to him getting. But obviously after 3 seasons of not really being, as competitive as he wants, that's going to get frustrating. That's going to get aggravating. Honestly, when he's at the racetrack, he's probably not in a good mood because of that. Whenever you're running, 20th to 30th almost every week, you're going laps down, midway through the race or even earlier, you're not going to be in a good mood. And even just being in the car, in practice or qualifying, and seeing how much slower you are than the leaders, it's not going to really bode well with you. So I think that has a lot to do with maybe the way Kyle perceived it. Um, and I think Denny did a good way of explaining, I'm a NASCAR personality. I have a podcast that focuses on NASCAR, so in that way he's more like a NASCAR media member almost. And he wasn't necessarily being biased or unfair. He kind of was just calling it like he sees it, which is kind of what we want all of our media personalities to do, and not really have any bias or opinions on it. And I think overall, he was absolutely fair with the statements that he made. Um, do I fault Kyle for the comments he made? Not necessarily. I think same way he said he'd switch cars with him any day. I unfortunately for Denny, even in his early days coming through the rally series, he never really was in subpar equipment. He's always been in essentially Joe Gibbs Racing equipment, which at worst is the third or fourth best team in the garage. So he's never had to, as I say, put the team on their back and carry the team. Kyle Busch has done that whenever he was running for different Xfinity or Rally Series teams, and even the Truck Series team when he's running for KBM. And I think he's shown that he's able to basically carry the team and get the finishes. And so I really can't say it's fair for Denny to say, oh, or sorry, it was Kyle actually said, we'll switch rides. So absolutely, Denny, go run a race in a car that's not top tier. But obviously Denny's with Joe Gibbs, so that's not going to happen anytime soon. But no, I think both of them were justified in their comments to an extent. I do think Denny overall was fair and level headed in his, more so than Kyle's rebuttal essentially.
Yeah. So this poses a question, and you've alluded to this a little bit. Do you think that Denny Hamlin would perform better than Kyle Busch in current RCR equipment?
I don't really know, because we haven't really had, besides Kyle Busch, we haven't had a top rate driver in RCR equipment in the Cup Series in a while. Obviously, we had Tyler Reddick before he went over to the 45. But I mean, Austin Dillon's gotten some wins, but I don't know if Kyle, at this point, Kyle's, he's up there in age. I think he's actually a little older than I am. I'm not exactly sure. He's close to my age, around about. So obviously he's not, dropped off the face of the earth as a driver, which usually happens in their early to mid 40s. But he also has been racing for 20 plus years at this point in the Cup Series. And, he's been, a heck of a driver early on. So maybe it's just, over time it's worn off. I don't know. But I do think that it would be a competitive race between the two of them. You put them in, modern day IROC cars, and they're both going to be swinging for the fences and beating and banging at Bristol or, any of the non-super speedways. I feel like, it would be almost like a heads-up race between the two of them.
See, I feel like in equal RCR cars right now, and maybe this is just because I think Hamlin has adapted to the next gen car better than Kyle. I don't know if I think Denny Hamlin would, obviously he's not going to be where he's at in Joe Gibbs equipment, where he's running for the win every week. But I think you put Denny Hamlin in an RCR car, I think he's at least consistently running top 15. Whereas Kyle Busch, like you said, is kind of constantly running that 20th to 30th range. So I don't know. I feel like Denny Hamlin would still be a step up on Kyle in that way. And that is a completely theoretical scenario that we're never going to get the answer to, because Hamlin is at this point, Hamlin's either Joe Gibbs racing till he dies, or he runs for 2311. At this point, like
He'll never be outside of Toyota.
yeah, yeah, he's never going to be outside of that camp. So, so we may never get the answer to that, but it's a fun kind of theoretical scenario to look at. I agree with Mama Seeger. I think Kyle Busch is just extremely frustrated right now, and I think he's weighing his options of where he goes next. I think the best option on the table for him, most logical option on the table for him, is probably Spire. Maybe if that 71 opens up for McDowell. Although I'm not convinced at this point, except for, I mean, I know Hocevar and Suarez are running pretty good right now, but I really don't know if I think Spire is just the biggest step up for them. But I think Kyle Busch is just extremely frustrated. I wonder if he ever looks back to 2022 and goes, man, maybe I should have just taken the pay cut at Joe Gibbs and stayed with the team. We may never know. But anyways, so let's look. I wanted to talk about, obviously this is our race review segment, but we're at a point in the season where we are a quarter of the way through the season. We're 9 races down, 25% of the 2026 season is done. Obviously, there is a driver that is head and shoulders above the rest. If you don't know who we're talking about, then you haven't been watching NASCAR in 2026. But there have been some other showcase drivers. We've seen other drivers win races. Denny Hamlin's been up front. Ryan Blaney has run up front. Ty Gibbs has kind of been a standout at this point throughout the season. My first question about this, Dan, to you is, at this point in the season, who in your opinion needs to show more at this point, as we start to kind of get into we're starting to get past the spring, kind of getting towards that summer stretch? Who do you need to see more from?
Anybody outside of Joe Gibbs and Tyler Reddick? I mean, just being honest. No. As far as drivers or teams, like, obviously Trackhouse has had their struggles. I don't think anyone expected them to kind of fall off as much as they have. And it's been pretty well documented in most of the media outlets that I've seen that, they're on a bit of a rebuild. I don't know really how else to put that. I mean, it's they've struggled to an extent. Yeah, SVG was up in the chase standings for a bit, but he fell out. I believe this week he fell out officially out of the top 20 or top 16. I saw Mama Seeger's comment about Chase Briscoe. I think he struggled the first few weeks. Whether that was driver, team, equipment, I don't know. But I feel like, he had a 3rd place finish this weekend. Can we really say that we need to see more out of him when he's up there running in top 5? Granted, he wasn't there all day. He didn't have the greatest qualifying, but I think he did all right. I think some people would expect to see more out of Legacy Motor Club. Sorry to say that, Logan, but I think there was more hope, because I know they were talking about they were going to possibly be sharing data with Gibbs this year, and it's just not showing. It's not really giving me the being able to compete with 2311 and Joe Gibbs. Penske overall has not been great, and I know you're going to be talking about it in a bit, but like, have they been passed by RFK? Do we look at RFK as a top 4 team now? I think overall, like I said, unless you're specifically Tyler Reddick or Joe Gibbs, I don't really see anybody else who's really hitting on all cylinders.
I love how you just managed to throw Logan under the bus there. Like we weren't even like nobody was expecting anything more out of Legacy Motor Club than what they've done so far, and you still managed to just throw that in there. And you know what? I'm so proud of you. Anyways, no, I agree with a lot of those drivers. The one that popped into my head, we've talked a lot about Chase Briscoe over these few weeks. And I agree with Mama Seeger. I actually think Chase Briscoe is still one that I need to see more out of because, yes, he did finish third, but he did not run up in the top 10 today. He finished third because he was, he was able to get, he took 4 tires on that last restart where a lot of drivers took 2. And had there been another lap, he probably would have won because of that. But nonetheless, that's not what happened. One driver, and you mentioned this kind of as a whole when you mentioned Penske. I've got to see more from Joey Logano right now. I mean, Joey Logano, this is a driver that, like, I promise Mama Seeger and I did not coordinate that comment right there. I've got to see more from Joey Logano. I mean, Kansas is a track that he's got multiple wins at. And we were talking about him being 2 laps down at Kansas. Like, they completely misfired on that. And you could say Penske as a whole did that because even Ryan Blaney was pretty much a non-factor at Kansas. And which is really, to Ryan Blaney's credit, that's probably the first race this season where we've been able to say that he was a non-factor. But yeah, to kind of lean into what you said, that was my next question. Talking about Penske, we know Ryan Blaney's got the win, and Ryan Blaney looks fantastic. Ryan Blaney looks like one of the best drivers in the Cup Series right now. But as far as looking at the teams, is Team Penske the top Ford team this year? Or do you think RFK's taking that mantle?
I mean, looking at the standings, looking at the drivers, I look at it as, if anything, they're both like tier A. But I mean, statistically, I think RFK is looking better as a whole, top to bottom. You got Ryan Preece, you got Chris Buescher, you got Brad Keselowski. They're all running, pretty much top 20 every week. Whereas, like you said, with Penske this weekend, but none of them were really a factor, which granted, RFK wasn't up top 5, but they all 3 ran 15th, 10th place, something like that most of the day. And I feel like by the end of this season, RFK is really going to come on strong, especially, with the fact that Preece technically won already this year with the Clash. So, I mean, I think Brad's really put a lot into this team and helped it develop. Obviously, Jack Roush is, the guys know, pushover. He knows his stuff. But he maybe kind of fell behind a little bit in the last decade. But I think Brad's really come in and really been gung ho about trying to make changes and get stuff right the ship, as they say. And I think he's there. I think he's got that team to where they can go out. They might not be able to win every race every weekend, but they can go out and they can compete. They can get those top 5s, top 10s. And with this new chase format, that's what you need. You don't have to go out and get wins to lock you into the next round. You just got to go out and beat 15 other guys when it comes to the chase. And I think they can do that on a regular basis, at least enough to get, to where they have a shot for the championship with, 2 or 3 races left to go.
I think Brad Keselowski has really gone into RFK and has totally changed kind of gutted it from the inside out, and has truly been the example of what long-term success looks like. I mean, he came in 2022. They did a whole shop remodel back in 2022, just so it look, just to give it the look of like, hey, you're working in a new place. Like this is going to be a new atmosphere, type way. They brought in a third car. And I think when, in that 2022 season, maybe even 2023, I think it kind of looked like, like maybe Brad Keselowski's, Chris Buescher showed some signs, but Brad K really didn't. And then in 2024, we see them take a step forward, and in 2025, we see even more. Um, and like you said, 2026, they're looking even better. I mean, all three their drivers finished in the top 11 uh, at Kansas. So we're seeing them run consistently well at a mile and a half. At something where you want to see. I mean, all three RFK cars finished ahead of all three Penske cars in this debate of Penske and RFK. I don't know if I'm willing to say that they've fully taken the mantle of top Penske team, but they're really close. I think we'll see it. If they can come out and just lead the Ford pack at Talladega this weekend and just kind of put a chokehold on it, I'm really looking good at RFK.
Well, I mean, we saw in the first duel at Daytona this year, when you had all four of the RFK cars with Corey LaJoie in the 99, they were basically running 1 through 4, and then there was a late caution. Kind of Corey got caught up in some stuff, and unfortunately, it made him DNF for the race, or DNQ. But I think they've shown that especially with just the super speedways, Ford has always to me been one of the best when it comes to being able to work together. I don't know what it is. Obviously, Toyota doesn't have as many cars in the race, but Toyota has not, to me, worked the best together as a manufacturer when it comes to the super speedways. But Ford, for some reason, front row, RFK, Penske, all of them seem to work really well together. So I think this weekend's really going to be probably their best shot at going out and really showing that Ford's able to compete. Because really, if you look at it, and I think we kind of talked about this in one of the last couple episodes, Ford is not that competitive this season. I mean, Chevy struggled a bit with the new nose, but Ford, if you look at it, besides Ryan Blaney, like you said earlier, they're not really running up front.
Yeah.
So I mean, hopefully Talladega is kind of something that they can all work together and get at least a good finish for everybody.
I'll tell you another driver that crossed my mind that I feel like I want to see a little bit more from this season, and it's just because I think over the last 2 years we were so used to hearing his name by now, and he's still running well. I mean, he's sitting 7th in points, but William Byron, I haven't heard William Byron as much as I expected to by this point in the season.
Well, I think Hendrick as a whole, I mean, when you look at him, you really just think of Larson and Elliott. You really, I mean, yeah, Byron's always been a competitive driver, but when you look at the team, that's who you think of. Like when you think of Hendrick, you think of the 5, you think of the 9. Just that's how it's been the last 2 or 3 seasons. And realistically, I mean, yeah, Chase has got to win this season, but he hasn't been running top 5. I mean, like I said earlier, when you look at people who need to step up, besides Joe Gibbs Racing and Reddick, they're really, none of them are really showing, the results that we expect from most of these teams.
Yeah. So speaking of Reddick, one other topic I want to talk about on this long race review segment. I kind of knew our show was going to be heavy on this review portion here. Reddick, 5 out of 9 already. Off to an incredible start. We know momentum typically doesn't last forever. And I fully expect Reddick to slow down at least somewhat. Because if he were to continue on the trend he's on, he would win 20 races this season, and that's a tall task. So my question to you, Dan, is how many wins does Tyler Reddick get in 2026. In your opinion, when we get to Homestead and the last checkered flag drops, how many wins does Tyler Reddick's 2026 season have?
Unfortunately, like you said, momentum usually doesn't carry on that long. And that's the one bad part about being hot this early in the season, is because come August, your luck might have run out. So um, I think anything more than 4 more wins is going to be crazy. If you get to double digits in today's NASCAR and the Cup Series especially, that's just completely like unexpected, unheard of. Um, NASCAR needs to be checking your engine every week. But I mean, realistically, I could see 8 or 9 wins by the end of the season. Anything more than that, I feel like NASCAR is gonna put a foot down and be like, "All right, we don't know what you're doing, but we're gonna build your car and bring it to the track for you because this is just crazy."
I'm going out on a limb here. I think he finishes the season with 12.
Oof, oof.
I think I know. Momentum is crazy. But 5 wins in the first 25% of the season. Do I think he could get 2 more than that?
But let's not forget, there's not an off week between now and October. Like, there's gonna be
I mean, do we think?
20.
Do we think the off weekend is what helped him at Kansas, or
No, but you're only, you've ran basically 9 out of 10 weeks, so you've had an off week in there. But now you're gonna go the next 5 races, 26 races, 27 races, 28 if you count the All-Star, without a break, without an off weekend to kind of sit at home and either refresh yourself and kind of reset, or to take some time off and go out of town or something. Go, because I know a lot of drivers like to take trips on their weekends off or whatever. But I mean, it's going to be a grind from now till Miami or Homestead. But I think he's not going to be refreshed enough, especially if he's up front running, as far as he's gone this past, 9 weeks. Like, I think it's crazy to go 20 plus weeks and, not have, I don't want to say catastrophic failure, but like basically just, a loss of momentum enough. That's a big number. 12 is a big number.
12 is a big number. And that is a hot take. I get that. Mama Seeger said she thinks 10.
10 is about max. I think 8 or 9 is more realistic, but 10 is about as far as I'd go.
So that wraps up our race review segment. Just a quick note from the lower series: Taylor Gray did get the O'Reilly win, and Carson Quapple had a flip there in the on lap 3. So definitely crazy action going down in the O'Reilly series.
I want to say I saw something. Just a little interesting thing. I want to say this was the first time that a father and son has both flipped a car upside down in that series.
That is a very interesting tidbit.
I don't know if that was accurate, but I want to say it was a tweet or something I saw that this was the first time that both a father and a son has both flipped a car upside down in the same series.
The only other one that I can that just jumps to me off the top of my head is maybe Joe Nemechek and John Hunter, but I don't know if John Hunter's actually flipped a car though in the O'Reilly series.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look.
Anyways, we've got a couple of Scuff stories to talk about. One big one, and then we'll kind of a rumor mill thing regarding the O'Reilly series that we'll talk about. So let's jump into a real quick Scuff stories segment. So the big story coming out of this week, Dan, is Daniel Dye is back. We talked a couple weeks ago about how he had been reinstated by NASCAR, and then was released from his truck ride at Colleague. Um, but he is back at least in some capacity, and he will be making his Cup Series debut this weekend at Talladega, which will
If he
be.
qualifies.
Oh yes, yeah, there will be a DNQ at Talladega, which is like the first time that's happened since outside of Daytona since 2019, I believe. So
Pretty much the starters, I think, realistically.
yeah, yeah.
Might have been a
So
race here, but
right. So I mean, he's running 4 Cup races for Live Fast Motorsports in the 78. They used to be a chartered team. They sold their charter. They're running part time. BJ McLeod talked with Dale Jr. about that on his podcast, which is a great listen. If you don't know anything about BJ McLeod, go give that podcast a listen. That's a fantastic interview. But I don't know. What do you? There's a lot of mixed bag opinions on this for. As far as Daniel Dye is concerned, a lot of people are calling it like Kyle Larson, like he said something out of hand, and now is getting a promotion because of it. There's some that are supportive of it, saying that it's only a part-time opportunity. What are your thoughts on Daniel Dye getting these 4 races?
I'm gonna start this first with I understand why he's getting this opportunity, and that is solely 100% money. Let's be honest here. Daniel Dye has not shown statistically that he's ready to drive in the Cup Series. He hasn't shown statistically that he's ready to be in the O'Reilly Series, realistically. I mean, if you go back and look at his truck and ARC results, they're not, super impressive. This is solely happening because whatever sponsor he's bringing is willing to write a check big enough, and BJ McLeod is willing to cash that check. That is the reason he's in this ride. Has nothing to do with what he said on a stream, has nothing to do with his talent in the car. He's approved by NASCAR to run these tracks, and he has a check big enough that BJ McLeod said, you know what, I'll allow you to wreck my car. That's the only reason this is happening. I as far as him falling upwards, I've heard some people say, relative to the Kyle Larson incident from 2020. I don't think that really this is anything similar. I don't consider a 4 race Cup deal with Live Fast Motorsports as a improvement over a full-time Colleague truck race series. Granted, it's Colleague in the trucks, but it's their first year. They were building something. Ram, just coming back. I realistically think long term that was a better ride than a 4 race deal in Cup with Live Fast. And granted, unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately for Daniel's case, 3 of them are super speedways. So he's going to run both Talladega races, the August Daytona race, and I believe Pocono, which is an odd track unless he really likes Pocono, or maybe the sponsors from close by. I don't know why they picked Pocono, but yeah, I mean I could definitely see him not qualifying this weekend because the 78 originally didn't qualify at Daytona, but I think there's going to be a couple slower cars. As long as Daniel can hold it full throttle around the track for the lap that he does qualifying, I think he'll make the race.
Yeah, I don't hate the I don't hate the thing. I agree. I don't think it's really a falling upwards scenario. I think Daniel Dye still has a long way to go as far as getting. Let's face it, Daniel Dye had a long way to go when it comes to getting a competitive ride in the Cup Series. He had a long way to go before he said what he said. So, I think at this point, the separation from Colleague, something that he wasn't expecting, the party wasn't expecting with Colleague. And I think Daniel Dye, I mean, regardless of personal opinion, on him or what he said. I think he's just trying to make do with what he's got. And like you said, BJ McLeod is just going, hey, somebody is offering me a check to for someone to drive this car for 4 races. So why not? Why not get some money out of it? If you're in BJ McLeod's position, you really don't have the chance. You really don't have the choice to be picky. I think that's why we saw Catherine Legg in that car for, quite a few races last year. So I don't know. I think, if you're thinking to yourself, Daniel Dye may get in this car and may actually win a race at the Cup level, I wouldn't hold your breath on it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, BJ McLeod really doesn't have many options when it comes to money on the car. I believe the last 2 seasons plus what the first couple of races this season that he ran, he was essentially unsponsored, so he's basically footing the bill to come and show up at these races. And unfortunately, like I said, Daytona, he didn't originally make the race, which I was I won't say upset about, but I was not happy about, because knowing he came down there, he spent all this money, and just to basically pack up and go home. Granted, he ended up making the race because I believe his Anthony Alfredo got disqualified, but I mean, BJ's putting this money out there, and it's really he kind of talked about it on the Dell Jr. Download episode that he was on recently. That he wants to build a team, and if that means he has to drive the car because there's no sponsor, then okay. But if he's got a guy who can bring a sponsor, then he's going to put him in the car, and that's what he did, like you said, last season with Catherine Legg. That's what he's doing now with Daniel Dye. This is not the first time that he's built a race team. He's done it, and I believe he did it in late models back in the day. He did it in what's now the Rally Series. I believe he had a truck team at one point in time. So I mean, this is not something that's new to him, and he's learning. Like, he knows what he's doing. You got to look at it as a business. What do you have to do to make money? And absolutely, if somebody comes to you with a paycheck, says, "Hey, I want to run. I got a sponsor who's willing to pay." Cool.
I think as NASCAR fans, we should really be grateful for people like BJ McLeod, for people who actually, I mean, you want to talk about Hendrick Motorsports or Joe Gibbs Racing not making money where they're at. Look at a guy like BJ McLeod. He's literally doing this just because he loves to race. There is absolutely no money being made in that camp. So I think that's a big deal. But that'll do it for our Scuff story segment. We had some other stuff that we could talk about, but we can always push it back till next week because there was more rumor mill stuff. So let's talk about Talladega in our race preview segment. We've got Talladega coming up with new stage links. We talked about that a few weeks ago. That was announced. Dan, I don't know about you, but I kind of agree with some other voices that I've heard. I think we're going to see fuel conservation in the first 2 stages, and then the final stages are going to be wide open.
Yeah, I mean, with the laps, they basically kind of flip the lengths of the stages. So initially, the third stage was a longer stage, and they knew, okay, we're gonna have to make one stop, but let's work it out better so we don't have to stay on pit road so long. We're basically now, I think it's just barely enough laps that they can technically make it on one or without a stop. I believe I have to go back and look, but I believe they can make the second and third stage without a green flag pit stop.
Yeah.
So I think those 2 stages specifically are going to be wild. You're going to see crazy passes. You're going to see 3 wide I won't say beating and banging, but definitely bumping. I do think we're going to have more aggressive drafting than what we've been accustomed to the past 2 years. The first stage, absolutely, it's just going to be, you might see a little shuffling towards the end of the stage to try to get stage points, but other than that, you're going to have 30 to 60% throttle most of the pack. I feel like maybe the two guys out front might be 70-80% throttle, but from eighth on back, you're gonna have guys essentially coasting around the track because I mean the cars once you're 10% throttle, you can pretty much keep up in the draft with especially with the 40 pack field. So um, I think the first stage is going to kind of be what we've been accustomed to, ride around and wait basically, and then the last two stages, specifically that third stage with about 20 to go, it's going to get absolutely crazy, and I'm excited to see if it works. I know NASCAR is going to try some things in the off season, take them out of Daytona and do some tests, but um, I think this is going to be a big step in the right direction at least.
Yeah, I agree on that, and I think I still think stage two is probably. I think we're going to see some fuel saving because I think you're going to have teams trying to make that last pit stop on pit road, even though it'll be under caution. I still think they're going to be like, okay, what's the least amount of fuel we can put in these cars to get them to the end there. So I think the crew chiefs are going to be mathematicians either way. Look, you want to get rid of this? Get rid of the stage cautions. You can award stage points and not have stage cautions. Like you can there's a way to do this, NASCAR. You don't have to listen to Fox or NBC or Amazon Prime or TNT. Like just give up the stage cautions. Anyways, so all right, Dan, because we're crunched for time, I'm just going to go into your race picks here. We've got O'Reilly's, and we've got the Cup Series at Talladega. I need to tell you that for the O'Reilly Series, there's two of us, and there are two really low hanging fruits here. So like.
Well, Tom did say starting this week he was no longer going to pick the low-hanging fruit, but I did not make that deal, so I absolutely will pick a low-hanging fruit, especially for O'Reilly's. I think it would be completely idiotic to not at least pick Austin Hill as my O'Reilly Auto Parts Series driver of the weekend. As far as Cup. I was going to say restricted weight. The super speedway tracks are always a little bit more of a crapshoot. But I think you're still going to kind of see some of these, these normal guys up front. And maybe it's just me being a little sentimental, but a guy who got his first Cup win at Talladega, and I want to say it was in the spring race. And it might have been 20 years ago. I have to go back and look. It was either 2005 or 2006. And I was just talking to a buddy about this last weekend. But yeah, Brad Keselowski. I'm picking him for Talladega.
It's 2009, by the way.
Was it?
You were, yeah.
Okay, well maybe not 20 years ago, but close enough.
Yeah.
It feels like 20 years ago.
Just wanted to. I had to get that because it's so rare that I know a historical NASCAR fact that you don't. It's such a rarity, so I had to take that moment. I'm not going to take the low hanging fruit for the O'Reilly Series, even though I kind of wanted to. No, I'm going to go for a driver who has some success at the super speedway level. For the O'Reilly Series, and a driver that has won at Talladega before, and I'm going to go with Jeb Burton. I think he gets the 27 back to victory lane there. He's been running pretty good this season, even at the intermediates. He's been running pretty decently, and they really have shown some steps forward with that organization. So I'm going to go with Jeb Burton to get the win. And 4, I'm about to make so many people upset. and not for the reason you think. I'm going to tell you who I think is going to win at Talladega. I think it's going to be Tyler Reddick. He's won at Talladega before. He won the Daytona 500. I think we see Tyler Reddick go back to back and get a win here at Talladega. I think the momentum continues through Dega. We'll see. We'll see where that goes. I think the Fords are going to have a strong showing, but I think at the end of it, these drivers like Tyler Reddick and Denny Hamlin, and from the Chevy camp, sometimes we see like an Austin Dillon. Sometimes they always seem to find their way up towards the front here at these super speedways. So with that, let us know who your picks are. We're glad everybody could join us. We're happy to have everybody watching the show. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you're not already, be sure to follow on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and be sure to hit the like button here. We appreciate everybody for tuning in, and check out our website as well. Well, Dan, what say you before we head off to Talladega?
As always, it's fun hanging out and talking NASCAR to you guys. Glad I didn't have to host and talk the entire show last week. Thankfully, Tom jumped on with me a little later, and then this week, obviously, Justin was back and got to host. So, anytime I'm the one, answering the questions, not asking the questions, I get a little long-winded. I apologize. I do, I really do. But I always like being on the receiving end of the questions as opposed to the asking side of it. So. But yeah, it's always fun hanging out. Excited to see a good weekend of racing at Talladega. Hopefully, with the stages being flipped around. Hey, Mike Hora. Hopefully you're doing okay. Hopefully you make it safe through the night. Have good weather the rest of the week or weekend. Yeah, I'm excited about Talladega, and hopefully Brad K can go back and get another win at Talladega.
I would like if the driver who most recently won at Talladega would win at Talladega. That would be great. I would love to see that. I don't know how many other people would love to see that, but I would love to see
4.
Okay, you can't just count the Seeger household. You have to there's got to be some, I'm sure Marissa Briscoe would be happy.
I don't know. Maybe she wants to head home early and doesn't have to deal with the post-race traffic. Maybe she hopes he wrecks out in the first stage and they can go ahead and head home.
Maybe so. I don't know. Let us know who your picks are for Dega. We'll be happy to tune in. We'll be back here next Thursday to talk about Dega, and we'll be back to preview our next race. So be sure to tune in next Thursday, and we'll see you guys then.